as well. And I'm glad that we were fortunate enough to have Greg come in and do these intros, so I don't have to spend a ton of time around that. So I'm excited to talk to you today. As we know from this summit, everything from TV, music videos, gaming, esports, the evolution. I think we talk about the future of media, but we're living in the future, I would say. I've been in this business for the last almost 20 years. I know you have the same. And all those things for those first few years that we've always talked about, I think we are literally living them now, inclusive of having these summits via this video right now, right? So before jumping in, I really would love, you being the VP over at Harman Audio. Harman is such a robust company. And I would love for you to share with the audience and even just kind of give more insight within me about, what you really cover, the brands that you oversee, what your role encompasses, and then any key initiative that you are working on that's really like locking in on your time these days.
Yeah, sure. No, absolutely. I'll give you the way less corporate version of my bio and explain what I do. So, as you heard, I'm the VP of Marketing for Harman Consumer Audio North America. And to explain what that means is Harman is a company owned by Samsung. We're a global technologies leader in two areas, connected technology and audio technology. And Harman's broken into four groups. You have pro audio, you have connected services, you have car audio, and you have consumer audio. And the easiest way to explain it is anything you can buy in a store is the marketing I oversee. So sound bars, portables, headphones, car aftermarket speakers, boat aftermarket speakers, anything you can buy in a traditional store is the marketing we do. Um, and to your question on sort of what I'm doing now, me and the team have talked about really three things. One is remaining relevant. Two is remaining culturally aware. And three is probably the newest, which is providing value in these unbelievably historic and unprecedented times. And that could mean everything from working from home, remote learning for kids, and then this other key piece, which is really improving your home experience. So if it's the right sound bar because you're streaming a ton of content on Netflix, or if it's portables for the house, or if it's like headphones to work out in, like how do we provide value in the world we're living in right now?
Right. Well, again, that's amazing, and it really has become an all-encompassing thing. Obviously, with just the last 6 months of the way of the world and where we are, I would say that the increased level of need for those types of things in the home, especially, I think is unprecedented. So, it's great that you guys are taking that stance and that perspective on how you approach the marketplace. So, I do want to jump in a little bit more around JBL specifically. I know because that's a big part of your overall scope. And before I get into JBL too much, though, I do know that there was a video creative asset that you shared with the team that I was lucky enough to quickly see. But I think it'd be awesome for the team to roll that and play for the viewers right now.
Great.
Hey, are you there, Chris?
I'm here.
All right. The wonders of technology. No, so we teed up that video pretty quickly, but I know that again, just from our various conversations and even seeing what's going on with you all in the marketplace right now, gaming has been a pretty big focus around your business unit, and I imagine just with the evolution of even media and where we know that gaming is everywhere, esports is everywhere. The increase in consumption of that as a medium has been ridiculous over the last. It was already amplified, but for the last few months, it's been unprecedented. I'd love to hear more about, how JBL decided to begin entering the space of gaming.
Yeah, no, sure thing. And first, I didn't hear sound in the video, which would be just, it's so ironic. I don't know if anyone else could hear it, but to not have sound from the head of marketing of an audio company is amazing. So, no, but quite honestly, of all the things we're working on right now, the easiest decision was to get into gaming. And, there's this kind of like unfortunate twisted irony of the fact that, listen, these headphones take years to make. So we've been looking at the space for years, but the fact that we were able to fast track our launch, looking at what the trends in the world were. It's a real credit to our product team, but the world gave us an unfortunate opportunity to say this is the time to do this. But just listen, just let's go back a year pre-COVID. So you got 2.5 million people in the U.S. either watching gaming content or playing a game. The World Economic Forum called it, I think it was like 20 or 159 billion dollar business, of which almost 5 billion is just from headsets alone. And if you think about what a headset brings to gaming, it's connectivity. And it changes the way, right? So I don't know about you, Lou, but I used to have a Nintendo and I had sit like this, and maybe I would call my friend and talk to them while I was
Right.
playing, but like the connectivity that a headphone allows changes culture. And we are a brand, and I'm going to speak specifically to JBL because the headphone that you might have heard them or you didn't hear them say is called the JBL Quantum. That's the line of
Mhm.
headphones JBL's launched. So I'm going to speak specifically on the JBL brand. JBL creates culture for Gen Z and millennials, and that's really where we sit. The metrics are right, the timing was right. JBL's actually been around for 75 years in pro consumer audio, and for headphones specifically, you have true wireless, sport, you have pro, we have all these spaces we play. So gaming actually just made sense as a place to go. And the last thing I'll say about it is, we did over 1,500 interviews of gamers, from the person who like maybe just watched a Twitch video to a pro gamer, like, and everywhere in between. And what we
Mhm.
found is the audio experience is probably one of the greatest opportunities. And three comments were made. I'll read them out, and that this is what led to what we have. So immersive and accurate sound, advanced communications, and comfort and ergonomics. And so our JBL Quantums, which are right here,
Mhm.
basically have 360 sound, so you can hear people playing around you. If you're playing Fortnite and someone's running behind you, you hear them behind you. It's got an adjustable mic, so if you want to hear your friends more than the game or vice versa, you can change that. If you want to flip up the mic and mute real quick, it's got a quick mute button. And then
Mhm.
it's got, we've heard lightweight and comfortable, right? So they're leather wrap, but they're not too hot. So really, we took the learnings of people and applied it right to our headphones.
Right. No, I mean, it makes sense. And just for the record, the audio for sure ran, and it sounded amazing.
Good,
So
good. I didn't
it
hear
did.
it, so I guess it's probably just as a speaker.
Yeah, no, it sounded amazing. And to that point, obviously there's a heavy competition in that world. But one of those things that you all have is such a rich history. And I just feel like to me, it makes a lot of sense, right? You go back to 2019, I think there was an article I read where Reed Hastings, he talked about media and the biggest threat even to Netflix. And he said it wasn't any of the other biggest, what we look at as the media competitors, right? It was Fortnite, is what he said in that article. And so if you're a brand and you're thinking about ways to future proof your business, or just even be creating value to hit audiences that you're looking to reach, naturally gaming made total sense. So, I think that it's a great position to be in there. When you're talking about culture, and you all have that history of working with league partnerships previously with the NBA for so long, and the cross pollination of whether you're talking athletes or music artists for that matter, and them jumping in. How do you balance the approach of aligning with an authentic conversation with like the pure play gaming audience
Mhm.
versus aligning with those more household traditional athlete artist names that integrate and cross over? Like, what is the thinking behind the approach, and how do you do that?
So actually, you right at the very end of that sentence, you basically answered it for me, which is you can cross over, right? So JBL's got three cultural pillars: sports, music, and gaming, and we keep it real clean and keep it real tight. And frankly, where they intersect is the sweet spot for our brand. And what you're
Mhm.
seeing right now is this incredible kind of like intersection of the three, right? So every athlete wants to be a gamer, every gamer wants to be a musician, every musician wants to be an athlete. And so when they sit in the middle, it's like right where we do our best. And so right now, I'll give you an example. Zach Devine on the Bulls, He's one of our ambassadors. Zach is also a big gamer, just launched his own Twitch channel, plays in professional gaming tournaments. So he's wearing his JBL headphones when he's not on the court when he's gaming. And he
Right.
signed 100 Thieves. 100 when we decided to get into gaming, the first decision we made was who are the ambassadors that can most authentically tell our story, right? Because anybody could run an ad. Anyone could go do what we did, and you get an agency. We got a great agency called Petrol, and have them go make an ad and run it.
Mhm.
But the reality was, you need to be authentic and have a real point of view. So the first decision we made was sign 100 Thieves. They are a gaming team, right? They got all these gamers that are experts in what they do, but they're backed by Drake, Scooter Braun, Dan Gilbert of the Cavs, right? They're part of culture, and their fashion lines sell out as soon as they drop them. Their content gets seen by millions of people. So we basically went to them first and said, let's help us authentically enter into the space and build that relationship. But then you also want, like, your Giannis or your Kembas, who are athletes of ours. You want
Mhm.
the pros, the highest of high pros. So we went out and signed three of the top gamers in the U.S. right now: Cypher PK, TP, and Sinatra, who are big time gamers. Collectively have like a 15 million person reach. And basically said, help tell the professional cred story of our brand. So we really use the power of ambassadors as our launch point for this brand. Media actually hasn't even started running yet, intentionally, because we're still telling our story.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, I think it makes sense. I think the evolution of media, just media strategy for that matter, a brand building is where you have to lock in on those touch points and those pillars, whether those pillars are actual gamers or people who are the athletes or the musicians. So it makes total sense. And I love the approach. You kind of took the next thoughts I had around the partnerships around 100 Thieves, for example. And I don't know, you kind of, talked about it, but can you unpack that partnership a little bit more as it relates to, obviously, I'm sure every gamer on their team is equipped with the JBL Quantums, but are there is there content, like a little bit, the details around that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So for sure. And it's funny you bring up kind of the media strategy, right? Because let's go back, let's say 10 years ago, right? Even 10 years ago. The first thing you would have done at a product launch is write your media plan, right? It's the
Yeah.
first thing I would have done, right? And you would have gotten the RFP, and we would have started talking media. The reality is, we were like, no, we're not doing media first. We're going the ambassador route first, and then we'll get there. And so 100 Thieves, right? Like I said, top gaming team, but also gaming lifestyle brand. Um, we went out and went right to Nate Schott, their CEO, had a conversation with him and said, I want you to help us build a lifestyle brand out of these headphones. And so, we're the official sound, the official headset of 100 Thieves. They use them in their compounds. They use them when they're doing all of their content creation. They use them in their streaming rooms. They use them in all their team rooms. And like I said, Nate Schott's studio. And then they actually also use them, obviously, on the competitive side in certain realms, depending on kind of how it works. But really, it was help us bridge that gap with culture. And the number one, unfortunately, the number one thing we were supposed to do was at CES. I'm sorry, was it South by Southwest? Obviously, that didn't happen. What we're going to be really unveiling with them in a really exciting way is coming up very shortly. If this was like in 4 weeks, I could tell you more. Maybe we'll make that a rain check. But our
Right, right.
first really big statement with them is coming up in real short order. But really, it was around social media, letting them post on their channels.
Mm-hmm.
Even their intro post, their unpacking videos, the seating kits we made them, even just the videos of Brooke AB or different people on the team unpacking those, unboxing those. I mean, were just seen by millions of people.
Right. Gotcha. Now, and listen, there's anybody who knows me, they've heard me spit out this phrase that I heard years ago in my career, was that you capture the culture, then you capture the market share. And, that approach really makes sense to me. My background, we talked about it a little bit a few days ago. I've spanned the gamut of whether you're talking selling media, content, athlete and artist partnerships, and there's a place for it all. And to your point, 20 years ago, 15 years ago, it was pure play. Let's just do that media. And even me working here at Vevo now, right? Like, we are a media driven platform. Like, that's our value proposition. But when we sit and have conversations with clients, it's like, hey, what is where you are in the evolution of the brand and the communications. And when we want to come in and add value from our platform, it's when you're at the stage of building the media. right? It's in a post world of you already identifying the alignment with people who are legitimately in that culture of whatever the audience you're trying to reach, and the building of it really makes sense. Which kind of dovetail into my next question, specifically around partners and platforms. And I know you aren't there yet as far as execution, but from a strategy perspective, um, is how are you looking at that at the criteria when you look at media platforms that will begin to support everything that you're doing? Is the thought to go purely around endemic Twitch, Facebook gaming, any of those YouTube, or is it let's save that for the organic reach that you get within the alignment with the players, and do you go more broader general market publishers and platforms?
Yeah, no, it's a fair question, and there's gonna be a little bit of a hybrid of the two. And I should go back when you think about my comment before about fast tracking these. I mean, we launched these headphones officially like I think in May, so we've only been in the market for 4 or 5 months now.
Mm-hmm.
And so and everything got moved up, earlier than planned.
Right.
I think during COVID you saw was it like a 15% increase in Twitch viewing. You saw gaming consoles and gaming consoles were the number one product in consumer electronics for a couple of weeks, and small TVs were number three for people looking for a gaming TV to play while they're watching TV. So it just showed you how quickly people pivoted to the space. So we were like, listen, we're almost there, just launch them, and that's
Right.
kind of so. But from a media perspective, listen, you have to tell a lifestyle story, right? So we want to be in places that are in the lifestyle space but broad. So it's not just about going after just the hardcore gamer or the professional gamer. So we want to be in more of a lifestyle space, but at the same time, we know that our sweet spot based on the headphones we launch are going to be in that moderate to heavy gamer. So we also do want to credibly speak within the gaming space. So you'll see us in the gaming space as well, into the more hardcore gaming spaces. And then Alu, you said it perfectly. The third spot is going to be the platform and voice of our ambassadors. So it's going to be on their channels, in their voice, in the way they want to do it. So if it's how-to videos on YouTube, if it's a tweet, if it's something on Instagram, whatever it's going to be, the way they want to tell that story. If it's just wearing them on Twitch, like we want to be in the journey of how they authentically communicate their message.
Right. When I think about these conversations, I kind of go to a place where in the gaming world, obviously we look at media and we look at the need for it in certain ways. But it's almost as if the gaming world or even esports world, you align with the music business a little bit in terms of going with artists, right? You align with these artists, and then everything that they do, you gain the exposure from.
Yeah, you'll
Um,
see it with us on the sports side. So during the bubble, well, in the beginning of the bubble, we sent all of our athletes that were in the bubble our gaming headphones. And when you watch that bubble life content, which I thought was great, by the way, you'd see JBL Quantums in there quite a bit. And we did a number of NBA seating. So actually, when Zach was in a couple of his gaming tournaments, like the 2K tournament, he had the Quantums on. And then you saw a number of other athletes because he gifted other athletes. So you started to see those showing up on that platform. And that's kind of where the crossover of sports went. On the
right.
music side, I think we're still working through kind of how that will look. I could tell you that COVID kind of put a kibosh on a couple plans that were in the works, but
Mm,
there'll be some interesting crossovers on the music side. And then the last piece is content that we want to create. So you'll see some content coming out, which will be part of the media we do, which will be around the lifestyle of the athletes and how they live their life, um, you know, uh, while they're gaming, while they're not gaming, while they're preparing, while they're just hanging out, and how JBL products and JBL Quantum play a role in that.
gotcha. And so let me ask you, kind of like not switching gears, but pivoting a little bit around just thinking about media networks, television networks, esports, and what are your thoughts around, not calling you Nostradamus or anything, but what are your thoughts around will you see networks doubling down like ESPN and how they program gaming? Do you foresee us hitting some level of maybe maturity around it? Like, what are your thoughts there?
Well, I wouldn't say maturity yet, but the most staggering stat I heard probably in any part of the research on gaming was that by the end of 21, esports is expected to surpass all sports except for the NFL in the United States. I mean, if you think about that stat,
Right.
All the hours of sports I've watched, esports will surpass all but the NFL by next year. So it tells me that I firmly believe that there's going to be the sports networks. I'm sure are thinking through how does gaming play a role? Is it like, there's going to be a fear, right? I'm sure there's a fear into going to that space, but there's got
Right.
to be a role that it will play. I also think brands as a whole, brand and media people will start to think about, like, do I start to take dollars off of other sports and move them into esports? I mean, I think it's a very fair question to ask. If it's in theory the number two most viewed sport out there, so I think you're going to see a lot of change. I also think the NBA and like if you take their 2K league, you're going to start to see thinking about how brands spread their dollars even within teams if they have both. If they're involved with both. So I think you're going to see a lot of change. I don't think anyone's running from big media buys in sports, but I do think you'll start to see some changes in philosophy and some tests certainly. Some brands that you just heard Eminem's talking about that just now, like thinking about entering the space. So you're
Right.
going to start to see brands dabble and figure out sort of where their foothold is and strong point is in like real time.
Yeah, I'm sorry. You mentioned the M&Ms, and I got fixated on the whole Cocoa Crisp that she mentioned.
That was great. That was great.
But yeah, no, what's interesting around that, and obviously dealing with the pandemic over the last 6 months, we all have so many different layers to it. Business, personal, professional, and so when there was that pausing of sports, right, during that March through May time, and really is just over the last month or so that we've been back into some level of gear of that sports world. To your point, there definitely, I think, will be. I agree that there'll be not some huge mass exodus or retransferring of allocation of dollars per se, but there'll be more strategic moves for sure around how those dollars go. I think it's forced everyone to reevaluate their process. You speak about the NBA 2K league, and so they haven't been on this huge platform as some of these other League of Legends and Overwatch leagues that happen. However, they consistently grow, and because NBA teams, all of them own one of these NBA 2K teams and leagues, like it makes total sense to invest more in the production level of even those events and how do we bring brands in more. So it's something that, to be honest with you, I hadn't had a lot of conversations about very recently around that, but it makes total sense, and I would imagine they would do so. And even the thought around, again, kind of my head stays in the space of being at Vevo, for example, and we did a lot of stay-at-home concerts and performances, and so I'm wondering like where that space will probably lend itself to as we look forward around athletes and artists, or trifecta of gamers playing games and being able to kind of just broadcast live or stream live from their homes, and how much more that's valuable and creates another platform for brands like yours and other brands.
Yeah, yeah, and that all falls into that. I wish this was 1 month from now conversation for us at least. It's interesting. I'm going to go off media for 1 second because I want to go back to behaviors because there's another interesting thing that we found that I mentioned before. We were really trying to provide value, and that was like the biggest. Listen, everyone involved in this whole summit is thinking right now around pivoting. Right? How do you pivot? It's like the
Right.
great pivot of 2020. And one of the really interesting things we learned was, listen, like you, like me, we're sitting at home, right? I just realized I had the camera going into my closet. I just turned the screen, right? But one of the things we learned was our headphones are really good for working from home. And so we actually, in no way was that part of our original strategy. And we realized that like ourselves, literally all day long, I'm on this thing. And so we started some kind of secondary social content. It was work hard by day, game hard by night. And it was like, use these during the day for your work calls. And it's got a boom mic and it's got a mute button. It's got all the kind of the features you need. And then by the way, I assume you're going to be gaming later. So, we found ways to pivot even in behavior of us as users of the products. So it was a really interesting time to think about, we were like all about gaming, gaming, gaming. Like, wait a minute, we're work from home too. So we pivoted even the product benefit of our brand in this whole, unique moment we're all sitting in.
Yeah, no, it's smart, and brands have to do that. Sometimes you're forced to do it. It falls upon your lap around like what are the necessities of my end user, right? And how and how can I make things so they don't have three different pairs of headphones per se. Maybe they do. Nothing wrong with buying more headphones, but But it is it's an interesting point. Let me ask you. I know you said that there's things that you guys have rolling out that you can't really announce more, but do you foresee in that the holidays are coming up? There's big. I'm sure there's heavy ups around just where you'll be showing up. As it relates to any partnerships with any artists, are there any artists that you guys are working with or on your ambassador roster that you foresee DJs or whatever it may be that you foresee coming into play around this even gaming initiative?
I think you'll see a span. It'll cut across a number of spaces. So one will be the tier A artist that everybody knows. Um, there's a no doubt place where we play and will continue to play with DJs.
Hmm.
And then I think, frankly, it's kind of who's the next big artist. It's fine that the next voice, not the show, but the the next artist that will be prominent in music. So we have plans in place across all three. Really kind of hitting all gamuts of the music space. It's funny when you're a brand, and next year, by the way, is our 75th anniversary. So there's a lot that this brand has from literally Frank Sinatra using AKG mic to Paul McCartney using our product. Like there's such heritage and credential to like literally who's the next big artist. So it's a delicate balance we have to face when we're trying to like play to our strong point and then also think through kind of the next emerging sound. So we have things that will be rolling out soon, and I'd say by like Q4 to your point before, holidays a big time for us. You're going to see a lot of changes and a lot of announcements of things we're doing.
Gotcha. So let me ask you a question. It's more around like your journey, right, and your career, and obviously you spent a lot of time working in media marketing and innovation at PepsiCo. I'm sure you did a lot of cool things. The Super Bowl halftime show, I know that you were involved with, and then jumping at A Plus E Networks, launching the National Women's Soccer League. I mean, I think that probably had to be one of the coolest things I would imagine that you were involved with during that time. Are there things that you have taken away from that journey that you would say you've been able to really apply to some type of strategy right now in your role?
Oh, it's a great question.
Sorry.
You are right. Launching the National Women's Soccer League was one of the most meaningful parts of my career because it was something that Lifetime took on, one of the A&E networks, with the belief that they would obviously only do this if the women's U.S. soccer and women's soccer um, tried to help foster more women's empowerment. So it was great to be part of something that had a lot more depth to it. Um, I'd say this, what's interesting are the last probably 15 to 20 years, 15 years of my career, I've worked in like challenger environments, right? So you have Pepsi and Coke, you have history and discovery, you have JBL and Beats, right? So I've always been in these like kind of dogfight places with brands, and it's been really exciting, always being in these places where you're like always like at battle. I think it's allowed me to personally, but also the brands I work on, to take risks and to think about things where you have to, because you have to take calculated and strategic risks for brands. I mean, if you're number one in the category by 40 share points, you just gotta be smart and sort of like,
Maintain.
lose that. Yeah, you maintain. Or if you're a tiny little brand with no funding, it's like, how do you be gorilla? But it's been really interesting playing in this place of like being able to be a brand that's always in a dogfight. And I really found that like it wasn't about just being like status quo and just doing things the way it's kind of always been done. It's about evolving, it's about innovating, it's about finding new niches and things to do with your brand. I think, as evidenced by some of this, launching gaming and realizing it's a work from home, right? Going into launching a pro gaming headphone but signing a lifestyle brand. It's around finding these ways to kind of move and shake and find and take risks with the brand.
Right. And then I know your primary focus, I believe, is just Americas, but from a global standpoint, I'm sure I think you probably have some oversight there as well. Are there things on the horizon you can share with us globally? Or I know that you have certain athletes, for example, that you probably have partnerships with around JBL.
Sure. Yeah.
So anything you can share around that, I'm curious about.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting. Like we have a good balance to your the first part of that question. Yeah, so I have more of a communicative oversight across the region, just making sure everyone's plugged in and taking learnings from each other. But the reality is, by region, there's nuances, right? So whether it be Premier League soccer, or whether it be, Australian rules football, or rugby, the sevens down in Australia. Like, there's different nuances and things that really resonate with culture, right? You have to be culturally relevant in your region. We do something at JBL, which is a global event called JBL Fest, and it's a one time a year event where basically all the regions pool a lot of their thinking and creative in a way to bring the best of all of what happens in the regions to one location in Vegas. And it's like a 3 day showcase of everything the brand has to offer. And that's where, like, you're seeing the biggest DJ in Australia performing next to a producer from India or a pianist from China, and we have this incredible, like, cross section of talent performing and really and mingling and hanging out. But, like, we show off the entire breadth of the JBL brand at this event, JBL Fest, which fell victim to COVID this year, but we'll be back. Like I said, next year's our 75th anniversary, so you'll have
Right.
JBL Fest plus 75th plus everyone being excited to be out of COVID. So I think you'll see a lot. It'll be a really exciting time for us next year.
Yeah. Well, and the fact that, I mean, again, just locking in on the gaming and esports, like, so huge. It's a global movement.
Yeah,
So
there's and we are the so we had a big event last year, actually, at JBL Fest at the Esports Arena at Luxor, where we, that's actually where the first time we ever, it was all under NDA and super secretive. We showed the headphones to our partners. So we, but yeah, there'll be a lot of noise around gaming too for that as well.
gotcha. All right. So I'm gonna jump. There's tons of questions being popping up now. So I'm gonna do my best to
Great,
answer as many as possible in the time we have remaining.
great.
First question that comes up is around how do you approach your emerging media channels, and how do they factor into your overall strategy?
So I'll go back to that point around, like, you need to be broad and strategic, and sort of find the reach and impressions you need to keep your awareness and your consideration high. But at the same time, we know we have to take some calculated risks and play in some spaces that maybe even sometimes are uncomfortable, because we know that it's not set up or might not even have the reporting in to get you the reach that you think you want. So we do definitely always challenge both our media agency and even ourselves, frankly, to say we have to step out of our comfort zone. I know it's easy to buy off this partner here who's going to deliver a bajillion impressions, but there could be 3 or 4 partners that are going to tell really good cultural stories, and we have to take some calculated risks with them. We did that last year. I'm trying to be partner agnostic here, but we have a partner that we actually turned over our assets to. We literally said, "Here's the production days we have. You go produce the content and air it on your platforms," and we co-produce something with a partner.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean that's a lot of trust.
Yeah, no, I mean, they shot it. We were just kind of like in the third row of seats at the shoot, like it was their production,
Right.
and we said, tell our story in your voice.
Well, I mean, listen, that's authentic, and that again, like, you're not sipping the Kool-Aid, but it makes sense. Like, you go, you engage with a partner to reach their audience on their platform, and where there's obviously times where you want to maintain the strict kind of creativity alignment of what you already have doing, but it makes sense to do that as well and kind of relinquish a little bit, and I think it ends up speaking to whoever that audience in a more authentic way, because they know what they're doing there as it relates to their audience, at least.
It's all about storytelling, right? And it's
Yeah.
if you just think like you're gonna tell your story or run your commercial everywhere, like that's not talking to consumers on their terms in their voice.
Right. Totally. So another question that came up, is there any focus on the Super Bowl this year?
Great question. We have had a smaller role in the NFL in general. We
Mhm.
actually are the official sound partner of the NFL Alumni Association. So we do a lot of events with alumni, and it's really our buyers, our dealers, our customers really love those. Uh, so we are still kind of on a wait and see place right now, which I'm guessing 90% of the world is. Obviously, we're watching, this past week and tomorrow night. We'll see kind of how the NFL continues to evolve. But we're we realize the state we're in right now. I'll put the Grammys in the same boat in case that's a question. Like, we realize the state we're in. We're watching what virtual events look like in music. We're watching what no fan events look like in sports, and figuring out kind of what role can we play for the consumer and the leagues and teams that we have relationships with.
Right. Gotcha. So it's TB TBD.
It's a TBD. Listen, 90% of everything we do these days is TBD,
Yeah.
right? Like, if I step outside today, TBD. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's a unique time.
For sure. No, it's like like 6 week increments of strategy almost, right? Of like, all right, what do we do next? Like, you have
But
5 different.
yeah, but on that note, like think about it. Like if you're a speaker brand, like the role we can play in your home at Super Bowl, no matter, even if we were live in Tampa this year, the role we can play in your home is just as great for the hundreds of millions of the 100+ million people who watch it. To be able to provide that experience for you in your home. So, we're thinking through what value, it's the same question I opened with. What value can we provide to consumers in these times? And then the
Mhm.
same question applies to something like the Super Bowl.
Right. No, totally. It's funny. This kind of tees up, almost slightly answers this question. I want to make sure I get it over to you. Is working from home and distancing has altered consumer media and digital habits in many ways. What are you seeing when it comes to those types of behavioral changes, and how are they adapting?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably I'm guessing this question. If this question has been asked all day, I'm sure the answer will feel fairly similar. But it's around, and I'll go back to the kind of that line of like we have to tell the right story to the right consumer at the right moment. And so we're finding right now there's been even pivots within, and I'm going to stay partner agnostic. There's been pivots even within social media. Certain platforms right now are working better for us than ones that had worked a couple weeks ago. Shoppable social. The move to e-com versus brick and mortar has been seismic, right? So we're finding shoppable social playing a huge role that maybe it had been a small little test focus for us previously. So we're watching, we're testing, and we're reading. What we're doing. But those are some pivots we've seen right there. I think if you took my budget and said how much of it was social, it's certainly expanded versus maybe it would have been a year ago. And if
Mhm.
you had told me a year ago we're going to put a whole bunch of investment behind shoppable social, I would have said sure, put a couple dollars into it. But like
Right.
things are just changing so quickly that we're trying to evolve with the speed of culture right now.
Yeah. No, I mean it makes it shoppable, especially with shoppable. I mean, and obviously you have other
Yeah,
all kinds of platforms. I won't mention any as
yeah,
competitors, right? But I've seen some headlines around the functionality like being there now that I don't know if it was on a track to be there, prior to a
it was.
stay-at-home
Yeah.
world. So everybody's kind of pivoting to align with that. Um, and then I think we're coming up on time. So let me make sure. All right. There's another question. Uh, when it comes to the approaches to data and cookies, you know, is there approach with acquisition marketing?
Listen, it's an important part of the business. You have to be doing this is something you have to do very carefully and make sure you're doing it right. I'll answer that a little more broadly and say the no-brainer part of this is that the e-com business within Harman has seen incredible growth. Um, but then how we do it, how we communicate, who we're talking to, how we're targeting has really changed and gotten quite sophisticated, frankly. So we've really done a lot to try to keep that growth, streak we're seeing,
Right.
but as smartly as you possibly could, because
Yeah. Yeah.
that's a space you don't want to get wrong.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's how we feel around the same kind of conversations we have at Vevo. Everybody wants to make sure they're aligning, providing the most data-driven solutions as possible, but you have to be very smart and responsible about it.
Yeah, for sure.
I think we're coming up on time. I want to respect. I think Craig is jumping in right now.
Yeah, hey guys. So, Chris, look, I think you may be onto something with this whole work by day, game by night case study one. I'm sitting in my office. You notice I'm sitting in a professional gaming chair.
I noticed that the second I logged on.
Yeah. Pro esports chair with my name on it. I'll tell you that story in another conversation. But if I need to step up to the plate and sign the industry's first working stiff headset ambassadorship,
We
Yeah,
appreciate that.
yeah. I'll be
so
your second guy.
this is beautiful. It's perfect. So listen, thanks so much, guys, for stepping in today and closing out such an amazing day on the future of media, TV to esports. Special thank you to you and all of our speakers for such engaging and insightful conversations today. I know I personally took a lot from every single session. So to everybody else out there, we hope you all join us again for the next Brand Innovators livecast tomorrow at 1:15 Eastern Time for a livecast on women in marketing. We'll be joined by marketing leaders from Michelin, Nissan, Marriott International, WPP, and more. So thank you.